Peace, peace, peace. I am Phillip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the February 22nd edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Shout out to those of you. Shout out to the Instagram people, man. Barrett came through for like point 0.5 seconds. I know she about to come in and leave, but shout out to you. Shout out to Court. Shout out to the people who were tuned in on Instagram. As always, head on over to YouTube. Shout out to the people who are watching on YouTube. As you can see, I have the Zoom room key, so feel free to come through, have dialogue on air with me. Listen, I don't get everything right, right, and I love healthy dialogue, healthy pushback. So feel free to come through and participate in this conversation with me. And last but not least, props to those of you who are tuned in on Facebook. So listen, man, I was going to talk about what took place with Elijah McClain today and the findings, or I don't even want to say findings, man. We know they effed up when they killed that young brother. They murdered that young black boy. Um, they went as far they went so far to the ledge, and then they stopped short of saying that it was implicit bias was the reasoning why he was killed. They acknowledged him being over medicated with ketamine and just a host of other things. And I thought about discussing that today, but I realized that I just don't have the capacity to discuss that. So I'm not. Right. We know what it was when it took place almost 2 years ago. He was murdered. When we found out a year ago, we knew that he was murdered. So I don't need any type of independent investigation to tell me what it is that I already know. What's going to happen is the family's going to get cashed out. This helps their case. But make no mistake, this is not healing. This is not accountability. What uh, this is all about optics, and it's optics from a police department from a city who's notoriously known for uh, treating black folk like ish. I saw you say, Barrett, that you want to go to Colorado, just don't go to Aurora. Or I don't necessarily know if you want to go anywhere near white folk in Colorado because they're a different breed, clearly. And so, but safe travels to you if you do make that move. So tonight I wanted to talk about something that I saw this morning on Twitter. I must say, Twitter is the devil. Twitter is the devil. Out of all the social media platforms, right? Facebook is the place where you go. You want to have those debates where you can have lengthy conversations. Instagram is where you want to go and put pictures up of what's taking place, beautiful pictures. Or if you're like me, you really don't care and you posting whatever you post on Facebook and Twitter on uh, on Instagram. I see that made the bull. What's his name? Justin. Is it Justin LeBoy or Justin LA Boy? I don't know. He posts one line every day, and a million people like it. I don't necessarily get that type of response, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm not the 180 characters or less type of person. Hence the reason why I do not thrive on Twitter. Shout out to Sharif Dejanet. Hopefully I got it right. Props to you. Peace to you for coming through. The reason I don't like Twitter is because if you comment on something and it goes against the what the masses think, they gonna try to dunk on you like Anthony Edwards did that Japanese basketball player over the weekend. And it doesn't just stop at one person. You'll have multiple people trying to dunk on you at one time. They throwing oops and dunking, and that's not good for for me. That's not good for my psyche. Why? Because I internalize things. I know this about me. See, Barrett says she loves Twitter. That's not for me, man. That's not for me. I love the thoughtful conversations, but everybody is mainly there to get their ish off and be as witty as possible, or to destroy you in as minimal characters as possible. So that's not the place for me. And I realized that, shout out to Melvin and Dalton that's checked in on Facebook. I realized that today. So I saw the video of Cam Newton and the young black boy who's from, and I'll get to where he's from, and you'll hear it in the video, the young black boy that went viral over the weekend. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the situation, again, those of you on Facebook and YouTube, you'll be able to see right now as I play this video. Those who are on Instagram, head on over. But I'm going to play this video that went viral.
You asked. Rich. You're free agent. You about to be poor. I'm rich. You about to be poor. I'm rich. You about to be poor. I'm rich. You're a free agent. I'm rich. You're a free agent. I'm rich. He's a free agent. Where's your daddy at? Let me talk to your dad. Let me talk to your dad. Where's your dad? You're a free agent. Where's your dad? You're a free agent. You're a free agent. You asked. Talk to. Let me. Where's your dad? Where's your pop? You asked. Where's your dad? He's asking.
So what you see right there is you saw a young football camper at Cam Newton's 7-on-7 tournament down in South Carolina. Shout out to Raheem Berry. I saw his son down there too. It's a big tournament where football players come down. They learn from the pros. They get some pointers. They get some competition, because we know football is being a winter sport. And the idea is, listen, you need as much practice as possible to get better. And you get to showcase your talents against others, which may lead to a scholarship or just more notoriety. And so you saw that young camper tell one Cameron Newton that he was ass. What you saw that one camper tell Cameron Newton that he was poor. What you saw was that one camper tell Cameron Newton that he was a free agent. So let's stop right there, right? Let's stop right there. Now I'm gonna tell you what my interpretation of what was being said, or just my reaction to what was being said. That young camper said, "Cameron Newton, you are ass." Listen, I'm not one of the people that's boycotting the NFL, even though I probably should be. I watched last year's football season. Cameron Newton was ass. All right, he didn't have a good year. An amazing quarterback, former NFL MVP, led the Panthers to a 15-1. He didn't want to dive and get that fumble against the Broncos in the Super Bowl, but again, he was still an amazing player and will go down as being having one of the all-time great seasons ever. But Cameron Newton, you were ass this year. Now, he went on to call Cameron Newton poor. Young fella. Cameron Newton is in the top 10 of current richest players across all sports. He has made over $122 million. You're wrong. Factually inaccurate. Right? Young fella, you are wrong. He went on to say, you're a free agent. Cameron Newton signed a 1-year deal with the New England Patriots. So you know what happens in a matter of a few weeks? One Cameron Newton will be a free agent. So let's look back, okay? He called him ass. He was accurate. He called him poor. He was inaccurate, to which Cameron Newton responded, no, I'm rich. Got him there, Cam. Got him there. You are rich. Last but not least, he called him a free agent. We know that also to be true. Mind you, this is a teenager, right? But I'm going to get into that. Now, but let's talk about Cameron Newton's response. Cameron Newton told him, he said, listen, first he got, the ego popped up. Man, I'm rich. Don't call me poor. I'm rich. Then he went into, where's your dad? Where's your dad? Where's your dad? And this is where I'm like, okay, Cam, you're kind of corny. So one thing we know about athletes is that athletes have what? They have ego. In order to get to that point, to get to that level where only 1% of 1% can get to, places like the NFL, you have to have some type of ego. You have to have some type of bravado. You have to have some type of arrogance with you. Same type of arrogance this young man had. Same type of bravado that this young man had. Same type of ego this young kid had. Could Cam Newton have been looking at a younger version of himself? I watched Cam Newton do the Superman against an opposing team or on their field, right in the defender's face. The defender got up in his face, he backed up, and what'd he do? Let me finish ripping that off. Again, it's in the heat of competition. I saw somebody say that what the young fella did was inappropriate for that environment. If any environment is appropriate, it's there. He heckled them. Athletes get heckled all the time, right? I know we're in a quote unquote sensitive era, right? I know we're in a sensitive era, but heckling is as old as sports. Trust me, I'm sure when they was in the Olympics and with the Greeks and the Romans back in the day, folk was getting heckled. I bet you back when they was in Africa having some amazing games taking place, it was somebody like, yo, you trash. They might not have used trash. They might have said something else. Heckling is a part of the game, right? Now, one argument could be, first, Cam isn't one of his peers. He isn't one of his peers. He isn't playing. Valid point. However, that type of environment is conducive to things that don't take place in common society. Or if it does take place in common society, it is on a sports field. Or it's playing video games. Or it's doing X, Y, and Z. The backlash that this young man received by saying he was disrespectful, I didn't take it as disrespect. See, disrespect to me is a word that you don't necessarily break it out until it's some real disrespectful ish taking place. It's kind of like disappointment, right? Like, when your parents break out I'm disappointed in you. It stings just a little bit more. That's how I view disrespectful. You dig me? And so when I think about that, I'm like, yo, it was definitely a corny reaction. The young boy was being corny, for sure. That was corny to try and heckle Cam. You want to get to where he is. And so how does heckling help you in any way? Doesn't make sense. It was corny. I'll give you that. No qualms about it. Again, disrespectful means something different to me. Now, we could be arguing semantics. That's a given. But again, I didn't view it as such. Now, what I did consider corny as well was Cam's response to the young fella, talking about, where's your father? And so I immediately thought, is this like some type of double entendre? And for those of you who are not familiar with a double entendre, it's just like you say one thing, but it can mean two different things. So are you legitimately asking him where his father is to have a conversation? Or are you implying that, where's your father? Because you ain't got no father that taught you home training. Unfortunately, this is the type of conditioning that black folk have, because we know what society says about black fathers and them being absent. Which further made me think that it was a double entendre and that I took it the way of him trying to be shady on the low. Was the fact that he said, where's your father? Why didn't you say, where's your mother? Why didn't you say, where's your parents? Where's your caregivers? You automatically went to the father. Why? Because this is a type of situation that men need to have a conversation about? Again, I'm letting you know where my mind went. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. But I feel like that was very intentional wording. Because, and again, it could be just this idea of masculinity. I'm talking to a boy, then I need to talk to his father. And Cam Newton further spoke to that on his Instagram post. Now, I'll post Instagram posts, like I have the young fella's apology. But I'm not posting anything from that Cam Newton writes, because he writes like an infant. No, infants can't write. He writes like a juvenile. He has a whole bunch of different scripts and fonts that he uses to write, and I'm not reading it. It's like, you ever seen something written by a Blood or a Crip? They try to avoid the B, or they try to avoid the C. You know what I mean? Like, nah, I don't have time to try to read your hieroglyphics. But he said to that he wasn't going to have banter with the child back and forth. That he wanted to speak to his father about it and have a conversation. And my thing was, that's part of the problem right there. So in the midst of me having this conversation on Twitter and people trying to dunk on me left and right, like Anthony Edwards, I spoke about this idea of Harambe, which means we're all in this together. And so the mere fact of you saying that you can't speak to this young black boy who's at your football camp, who's vying for attention, which you acknowledge that you're going to bypass him because you don't have the self-control or the wherewithal as an adult to pull him to the side on a one-on-one, if you really felt that offended, that was alarming to me. That was alarming to me. Quick story, I was at the LA Fitness at the gym. I was getting ready to leave, and these three young boys, same age as this young football camper, were coming down the steps from cardio, and one of them dropped the Gatorade bottle. The red juice spilt everywhere. And I sat there, right? I just stood there. I was getting ready to leave, but I stood there. And so they looked at each other like, yo, bro, what you doing? Why you? And then they started walking. Now, part of me was like, yo, it's just what it is. I don't say nothing to them. But that's exactly what happens far too often, where we look at black boys in particular and we say, man, I'm not going to say nothing to them. Why? Because that's how we've been conditioned. And so what I said was, I said, young fella, you want to clean that up? I was like, come on, baby, you got to at least clean it up. He was like, oh, wait, I have to? And I could have been like, well, yeah. What, you think you at home? But what I said was, nah, young fella, think about this. Yes, they have people who are paid to work here, right? Who are paid to clean this up. I said, but think about it. Think about you being on a job, you being somewhere, and something happens that you didn't do, which somebody else is capable of cleaning up on their own, and they don't do it and they just leave it to you. We want to have respect for people. We want to have respect for people's jobs. And so it's like, oh, okay, all right, that makes sense. So he went and got some paper towel. He tried to clean it up. And I said, all right, young fella, it's that effort that counts. Now what you want to do is you want to go let them know, hey, I spilled something. I tried to clean it up a little bit, but it's still going to be probably like a mop. And he said, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. And so instead of having him do it because he listened, because he took time, because he didn't know me from Adam, I said, nah, young fella, listen, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to let them know that something spilled. And that's what I did. Again, teachable moments. Right? That's what we're here for. We're here for teachable moments, especially as black folk, especially as black boys and black men who, if we keep it real and we look at some of the comments and responses from this situation alone, is definitely a fractured relationship. I know for myself, I don't necessarily know how to engage with older adult black men. I tell the story about an old head who was in his 70s, Mr. Carlton. He bought me a book. France Fanon, Wretched of the Earth. And I knew to say thank you, but I was taken aback because I'm not used to having these type of interactions. I'm so used to interacting with my peers. Right? We talk about the male influences and the role models in black boys and black men's life. This is one of the reasons why we preach about the idea of black male teachers being so significant. Who's educating? Yeah, Cam Newton, salute to you for having that 7-on-7. These kids paying $650 as a team, which is about $30 a person, to have this, to have them do something productive. But yes, they're going to learn some characteristics and things about togetherness and perseverance and resilience from being on the football field, teamwork and all that good jazz. But in that moment where you said, listen, where your father at? Where your father at? So I can have a conversation with him. That was a perfect opportunity to educate the young brother. If you truly had issue on a one-on-one, like, young fella, come with me, man. Let's go laugh it off. Come have a talk with me, man. Come walk with me. And then do it there, right? Have this conversation. If you really were that aggrieved by what was said, and we know you felt some type of way, right? But instead, this is what happens. Now I'm about to play the video.
Oh, bro. Nah, ain't no disrespect. You know, if you want some attention, I'm gonna give you some attention. The right way, bro. The right way. When do y'all play?
We play tomorrow.
What was y'all record today then?
1-2. No, 2-1.
What did you do? No, I wasn't able to see because y'all was too.
Cameras on me.
All right, bro. What did he do, man? Does he play?
He got speed.
He got speed.
No, he's letting his speed.
Oh.
You gonna see.
Huh?
You gonna see.
Nah, don't act shy, nah, bro. Don't act shy.
I'm sitting right here.
I'm asking you. I don't want to see. I couldn't see today.
You gonna watch YouTube, bro? You watch YouTube? I know you do. You
Cafeteria Crocs, man. No, stop.
What you do?
No, I'm really trying to ask you. Like, I'm trying to see like what you.
We do that shit for real though.
I'm like
We rep that 215.
205?
215.
215. Okay, cool. Bro. I'm just like, please don't be one-dimensional. Like you said something to me, then I go. I'm really trying to talk to you. I'm not trying to like crack no jokes. I'm just really trying to ask a simple question, bro. It's your fault why everybody's looking, but I'm really just trying to ask a question. But you never said what you did. You said you gonna see.
And so what you saw there was Cam Newton attempting to make it a teachable moment. Now, the thing is, you can have multiple teachable moments in one situation. And so, in my opinion, the first teachable moment was, instead of saying, or you could have pushed back and said, I'm rich. And just said, young fella, all right, come rap with me. Teachable moment right there. Cam felt there was another teachable moment that was there to take place. Now, I could have told Cam that wasn't the proper environment for a teachable moment. If you want to have a conversation with a teenager in particular, having that around their peers or friends or any type of external stimuli will not accomplish what you set out to do. Being around his peers is going to cause him to double down, just like he did. Yo, man, go check my YouTube. Right? Cam calling out that he did this for attention. What do you think the response is going to be? Of course it was for attention. That's what takes place at that age. Right? Peer relationships is everything. Those of us who have teenagers, we recognize that that's the case. And so trying to engage him around his peers, that wasn't going to work. Especially if you're trying to educate him or to talk to him about heckling you or you feeling aggrieved about what was said. That wasn't the teachable moment right there, even though optically it might seem like it was. Unless in the grander scheme of things, you wanted to teach everybody. And then if you want to teach everybody, you still have that individual conversation, that one-on-one, and then you bring it back to the group setting. So then it doesn't feel like you're embarrassing this young man. Even if the argument is that he embarrassed himself already. Right? It was missed opportunities. I saw people commenting and responding to me on Twitter. It's just like, you can't teach people if they don't want to be led. Bro, do you know what it's like to engage with a black boy? A black adolescent? See, when it comes to men and you want men to understand and you want the information to resonate, you can't just say, oh yeah, look at that. Right? You see what's taking place. That's crazy, ain't it? Some might understand that. No, you have to make it resonate. You have to say, think about that time, those times when you were 14, 15, and 16 and you wanted to impress your friends, right? Or a teacher might have called you out in class for talking and you were embarrassed. So what did you do? You doubled down. That's how we make it relatable. That's how we make it resonate. And so to hear people just damn near demonize this young man, and again, this isn't overall. I take it back. This is overall society because we talk about black boys, we talk about black men, we talk about black folk in general. We know what happens in the grander society and why that is the way that it is. We saw Cam try to act serious, right, and ask some questions. Again, partially trying to further and embarrass him a little bit, right? Because it wasn't necessarily a genuine interest in what he did. He was trying to engage with him, and it was super awkward. It was an awkward interaction between Cam and this young boy. Now, I'm not going to psychoanalyze Cam and think about why that interaction was so awkward. But again, we talk about ego, we talk about bravado, we talk about arrogance. I know Cam Pop was involved, but we're talking about entitlement. And then we just talking about the natural state of being a black man for so many, which we get defensive when we feel like we're being attacked. And so the fact of the matter is, yes, like folk in the comments have been saying, Cam did come down to this young man's level. I saw people saying, this might have ended up differently. Cam took the high road. What does ended up differently? Fighting a black boy? I get it. That's because we don't view black boys, black girls, black persons, and black bodies as being children. Once they're old enough to talk, they're black women, they're black men. They're old enough to get pepper sprayed and be told that you're acting like a child. And the response is, well, I am a child. Or is it because we've romanticized a physical discipline as a means to get our point across to black children? And so you might say, Phil, you're going too deep with this. This ish always has and will be bigger than Nino Brown. Right? It's always going to be bigger than Nino Brown. And that's just the name of the game. You know how critical I am of Jay-Z, y'all mans, and I call him Stringer Z now. I call him Stringer Z now. Why? Because I saw an article and he said that Jay-Z is what Stringer Bell desired, the level Stringer Bell from The Wire desired to get to before he was killed. So I call him Stringer Z. But Stringer Z said, adults acting like Tupac ain't having no. I saw Jamel Hill. I love Jamel Hill. That's what we got to do, right? We got to make sure we preface something by the love that we have for somebody. I love her work. I love some of the people's work who comments that I saw commenting on what took place. Saying these kids today are different. Word. So you trying to tell me, I could tell you for a fact in 2000, from 1990, the year 2000, when Mr. Manning was our English teacher, and I was 16 years of age, there was folk disrespecting Mr. Manning. I could tell you, I'm certain that in 1992, there was teenagers disrespecting their teachers, their peers, their elders, quote unquote disrespect. It's the same argument that people have about Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion with WAP. What you think your grandparents was doing? They might not have called it WAP, but they was making it. They was dropping it for Marvin Gaye, Miles Davis, Nat Turner, right? Like if we're gonna call a spade, let's call a spade. Let's keep it real. What's happening here is so many focus, especially black folks. I don't know what they do on their end. I'm not on white Twitter. I'm on black Twitter, and black Instagram, and black Facebook. But there's such an ageism that exists, and again, I don't know what age that hits for people. I think it's the age where you start to say, "Damn, y'all music is not as good as mine." Whatever age that is. I know for me that was probably about 30, 31. And it's even worse now, right? But we have this ageism here. And what that does is that hinders our ability to communicate with a generation who needs the guidance. And so what you're saying when you say that these children these days are just disrespectful, what you're saying is that you failed. It's an indictment on you and your ability to either parent or to influence a younger generation. That's what you're telling me when you say that. And see, I refuse to say that myself. Because it's not over until I'm with the ancestors. You know what I'm talking about? You know, I shouldn't be this frustrated. But it's just this entitlement that I've seen in this conversation, especially from black men. I don't even know why white folk would even comment on this, because there's layers to this. There's levels, like Meek said. Either Meek said it or Martin Luther King said it. I'm not sure. But it's this entitlement that both Cam and this young fella have. I asked a question to a brother on Twitter. I said, what does accountability look like in this situation? See, we could dunk on this young man all day. We could dunk on him all day. But what does accountability look like in this situation? Telling him to go home does what? Go home for the day, young fella. For what? For heckling? Okay, but let's just say you send him home. What does he learn? Right? What does he learn? What does he learn in that situation? Oh, just don't do it again. Behavioral changes, shame doesn't necessarily change behaviors, or it doesn't give you the type of change that you think is taking place. All shame does is induce fear. And who wants to walk around fearful? It doesn't offer, shame doesn't give you a deeper understanding of what's taking place. Right? But what does accountability look like in this situation? I'm not necessarily in that sports arena, sports environment, in that capacity where trash talking is heavy. I'm not there. So I can't even necessarily tell you what accountability is. But if you're going to tell me he was disrespectful, you tell me what accountability is. Otherwise, we not looking for solutions. We just trying to what? Dunk on people. Which as a community, it gets us nowhere. And so this young man, he issued an apology, right? And I'm going to try to bring it up on my screen over here. if I could see it. Bear with me 1 second. He issued an apology, I believe, on his Instagram. And so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he said, first and foremost, I want to express my deepest apologies to Cam Newton, my org, and my coaches for my actions at the tournament. I did not intend for it to get as far as it did. You didn't make it go this far, sir. Whoever the young fella that was recording you and posted it on TikTok and making it go viral and adults dunking on you and calling you disrespectful and calling you all these names. This could have been deaded right then and there. As a football player, I let my competitive side get the best of me, and it was a huge miscommunication. It was in the midst of the moment, and I realize now how a lot of you took it as disrespect. How a lot of you took it as disrespect. Now, one thing I know about apologies, if you say how y'all took it, I ain't necessarily apologizing for what it is that I'm doing. I'm apologizing for how you took it. I never meant to humiliate and let anyone down. Point taken, right? Now, I don't want this perception to be like I think Cam is some superhuman Negro, even though he has superhuman physical abilities. He's still a human being. And still being called an ass and being called a free agent, which is indeed true, right? That can hit you a certain way. And it's not a matter of being soft or it's a matter of being weak. Even if it is indeed factual when it comes to you not having the best season. You being a potential free agent. You doing it in front of all your peers, right? Because it makes you come across as being a bully. And so I can appreciate that argument, that if people want to make that argument, right? I'm appreciative for 7 on 7. It's allowed me to be a part of a community and an amazing team that I'm on. I realize this can dictate my future as a young man having very big dreams and goals. But I will not allow this to stop me from getting where I want to be. And that's the sad part. Because it's y'all muckers out there that's going to hold him to the fire for this thing that he made. Because we know this thing that he did. Because we know that's how folk love to do. Love to bring up something that somebody said 10 years ago on Twitter. I guarantee it's going to be a college coach, if he is indeed recruited to that level, who's not going to have interest in him for quote unquote disrespecting Cam Newton. And so he has to make a complete mea culpa. He has to position himself in a way to where he can now make no more mistakes. Why? Because black folk not allowed to have mistake after mistake unless you're a superb athlete. Unless you're a superb Negro. And that's the unfortunate part of all this, right? Because it's going to be adults out here that will hold this against him. But he said, so again, I apologize and I hope I can be forgiven. There's nothing to be forgiven about. And if we're talking about forgiveness, this is the Cam Newton, and this is a one-on-one hence the importance of having a one-on-one conversation with the young fella so he doesn't have to come on social media because everybody is dunking on him. To have this one-on-one conversation, something that Cam Newton didn't do. Let me see what y'all talking about on here. Shout out to C. Woodley tuned in. Definitely appreciate you. Non-athletes that never been in that type of environment trying to get feedback on what they know nothing about. Facts. Right? It's a certain type of environment that the sports arena is. Do I think it's an unhealthy environment? For sure. I think the sports arena is one of the most unhealthiest places for black boys and men that you'll see. I'm sitting here talking to the phone. I know from playing basketball, it's one of the reasons why I stopped playing basketball. And I will give you buckets, C. Woodley. I don't care how much you spot me or if you give me ball first. But one of the reasons I stopped playing was because my level of aggression was so high. And I can see it becoming problematic if I continued on that way. And so where I was at the time, it's just like, listen, you know what? You can't handle it. You can't handle it, that environment, because it brings something out of me. I'm a passionate person. I do everything with 110%. And so that comes with having a heightened level of self-awareness. What else? Shout to Melvin with my same last name. Props to you for tuning in. You know, I think that's really all I got, man. I'm not going to sit here and belabor the point. I might be back tomorrow. Or I'm going to give you the replay of a conversation that I did with Dr. Shonda, where we discussed Malcolm and Marie. I'm not sure. I'll figure it out tomorrow. But as always, I appreciate you all tuning in. Until next time, peace.